This is pretty trash. We better cut this out.
Dostoevsky.
Yeah, this is great.
In 2017, director Joss Whedon and a couple top-tier Warner Bros. Executives joined together to form Josstice League, a comic book team-up movie designed solely to give the executives their Christmas bonuses and Joss Whedon a chance to forcefully mangle the DCEU into something more Marvel.
Tell me, do you bleed? Yeah. Oh, something is definitely bleeding.
But in 2021, after a grueling 3-year war fought on the battlegrounds of Twitter, DC fans finally successfully rescued director Zack Snyder's original version of the movie in form of the Snyder Cut. Now, whether the Snyder Cut fully lives up to its 3-year build-up, that's for you to decide. But regardless of personal opinions, it is definitely an improvement over Josstice League, to the point where if Joss Whedon still wants to have a career after this, whatever he does next better be something really impressive. For one, at the very least the Snyder Cut makes comprehensible sense. After endless nights of wondering what the f is a mother box, we now get to find out. They can rearrange matter, which allows them to scorch the earth for Darkseid, and also in a similar manner bring Superman back from the dead. Would have been pretty useful information in 2017. On top of that, the Snyder Cut is also a film that you can actually look at without having to avert your eyes. Now yeah, we could have probably saved some time by using a bit less slow motion, and we still do have more DC CGI monstrosities, but nothing even close to the monstrosities from a few years ago.
What the f is that? What the f is that
I mean, it's a 4-hour movie, so most likely there's hours worth of individual surface level improvements to point out, which I'm not gonna do here today because nobody on Twitter has been fighting for a Filmento cut of the Snyder Cut just yet. But what I thought would be really interesting and useful to do is to visit my old videos identifying the main core issues I had with Josstice League and contrast those against the Snyder Cut to see if they've been fixed. And the answer is, they have been. They really have been. So the actual question is more just about how that was done. And so today, let's compare these two films side by side to see how one far exceeded the other and hopefully learn something about filmmaking in the process. Let's see how Josstice League's worst flaws became the Snyder Cut's greatest strengths. The first underlying problem with Josstice League was that everything happened at superficial face value, which made everything that happened come off as trivial and boring. When we first went to fight Steppenwolf, that's what happened and that's it. When we went to resurrect Superman, that's what happened and that's it. When we went to fight Steppenwolf a second time...
Is this guy still bothering you?
And the way this massively harmful negative turns into one of the Snyder Cut's greatest positives is because plot events no longer just happen. There's always something meaningful taking place within those plot events that makes them carry actual purposeful weight. For example, when we go to resurrect Superman, we don't just resurrect Superman, but instead the closer we get to that plot event, the more we get this unnerving sense that it might not be such a great idea.
We need to abort now.
Just do it.
This action is irreversible.
The more doubt we get from our heroes and the ship AI, the more flashes of the potential dark future we see, the more we start to sense the impactful stakes tied to what's about to happen. Resurrecting Superman isn't something we're just gonna do, it's something that comes off as an actual big deal with real, actual consequential meaning. To build on this, take the plot event soon after where Steppenwolf gets the last mother box, which in Josstice League just happened off screen. Well, it doesn't just happen this time. This time we get this extensive moment within it where Cyborg's dad takes the mother box before Steppenwolf can get it and sacrifices himself in order to overheat it in a way that our heroes can track it later on. The plot event doesn't just trivially occur at face value, but instead there's something in it to give it weight.
The mother box. He has the last one.
Dad, wait! Don't!
The mother box. He has the last one.
And the same thing repeats again and again. We always get something meaningful within the plot events to make them worth something. Whether it's having a close moment with the girl we saved from the gunman, whether it's making an actual choice to reawaken the last mother box despite that meaning it can then call out to Steppenwolf, whether it's taking our own father out to safety, everything that happens has meaning beyond just what happens. But the best example to really hammer in the difference comes in the finale battle plot beat with Steppenwolf. Whereas in Josstice League we just grabbed the mother boxes and pulled them away from each other, this time Cyborg has to first hook into the mother boxes and finally accept his father's actions as well as himself as the robotic being he now is.
We can put it back, Vic. Make you whole again. I'm not broken.
Whereas in Josstice League we just went in and beat Steppenwolf up to achieve victory, this time we at first don't achieve victory at all.
It's too late.
Gotta go faster than the speed of light, far beyond the speed of light.
If I can give one personal opinion here, the moment where Flash taps into the Speed Force and runs so fast he can turn back time a couple seconds, I was jumping in my seat. For me, hands down the most powerful moment in the DCEU so far, and the fact that someone actually chose to get rid of it gives me the creeps about what else we've been missing out on. But opinions aside, the most important thing about this moment is that it means that we don't just pop in and achieve victory as the finale plot point states. We first have to go through defeat to achieve it. As in, once again, the plot event doesn't just unfold as is, but there's something attached to it that makes it much more than what it is at face value. And as the Snyder Cut proves, that's a really crucial lesson for us all to learn. Mapping out your plot events is only the beginning. The real meaningful question is how those plot events unfold. Once you know what happens, then you need to figure out what it is that actually happens. The second core problem with Josstice League was that it was completely emotionally void, because we were given no guiding insight into what the characters were feeling or why they did what they did. On the hero side, the motivational drive mostly came down to the fact that Batman said let's do this, and then that's what we did. On the villain side, Steppenwolf was so incomprehensible that it was never clear what he was even trying to do with the mother boxes or for what reason. All we did get was that he had some kind of childhood-like schizophrenia involving a parent that doesn't exist.
Mother, at last you call me home. Mother is calling. I see, Mother. I know, Mother. Where is my mother?
And the way the Snyder Cut fixes this problem and makes us feel is by consistently informing us of what the characters are feeling. For example, one massive key for this was the choice to delve into Cyborg's background, where the basic gist is that he died with his mother in a car accident and then his absent father saved his life by using the mother box to turn him into a cyborg. The result of which is this toxic hatred he carries toward himself and especially his father.
If you were there, Mom would still be alive.
And yet, once his father is taken by Steppenwolf, Cyborg still, despite all that, chooses to go save him, which shows us just how much his father must actually mean to him. And suddenly, we don't go fight Steppenwolf in a dark tunnel just because Batman says so, but because we need to save this person we have a complicated relationship with and still clearly care about. Now, what we're doing is emotionally understandable and effective.
Wasn't sure you'd come. You're my father.
And you can even see and feel it in the performances like Night and Day.
But you will scream. You'll die if you don't.
As another example, look at the loss of Superman. Whereas in Josstice League that loss was reduced to a quick opening montage that Joss Whedon apparently created mainly to advance his own fake political agenda, here we get to actually experience that loss through Lois Lane. We see her visiting Superman's memorial every morning. We see her crying alone at home, unable to move on. Throughout the movie we get all these emotional beats that make us feel the sorrow she feels.
You haven't been to work since Clark died?
And so then, once Superman is finally resurrected through Lois Lane, that sorrow turns into joy. But if we're not shown that sorrow is there, we're not gonna feel it and we're not gonna care.
He said that you were the thirstiest young woman he ever met. Hungriest.
And you can find this same thing repeating over and over again. These bigger and smaller emotional beats that let us into what the characters are thinking and feeling, be that a choice or a line of dialogue or just a simple look.
For their lives, as did your mother.
Your kid was one of them, Dad. One of the best of the best.
But to really see the difference, look at the villain side. Whereas in Josstice League, our only insight into Steppenwolf was verbal exposition given by others that he essentially wanted to destroy the Earth because he's an entitled teenage girl.
This world
It's my right!
Here we finally understand that he doesn't have any interest in the Earth whatsoever, that the only thing he actually cares about is picking himself back up from the gutter.
Let me make a plea to him that I may come home after I take this world in his name.
He will hear your plea when you pay your debt.
Look, I'm not saying we go to Thanos levels here, but at least now we can view Steppenwolf as something more than just a DC CGI monstrosity trying to destroy the Earth, because that's what DC CGI monstrosities do. He's someone with an unyielding obsession to go home no matter the price, something which we can emotionally both understand and relate to. And that's another very crucial lesson to learn. If you want the audience to feel and care, the way to do that is to let them in on what it is your characters feel and care about. It's not about how much time you have, it's about how you use it. Josstice League had 2 hours, and yet it chose to spend that time not on our main hero's father-son relationship, but instead on this random nameless Russian family. Which now, with something to compare it to, clearly wasn't the right choice.
He'll be here, Alfred, I know it.
What makes you so sure?
Faith, Alfred. Faith.
Finally, the next big core problem with Josstice League was that director Joss Whedon's signature goofy tone went entirely against the characters that movie was about and also spit in the face of everything that came before it. For example, one issue with the earlier movies like BVS was that we often strayed away from what we were doing to set up something to do in the future. Not really ideal, but if that's the price to pay so that we can one day get this, fine. But then in comes Josstice League and snaps all that spent time out of existence. The dark dystopian future, gone. The mysteriously ominous MacGuffins, replaced by meaningless boxes that we first learn about in a way that makes no sense. Even the parademons went from a real threat to a straight-up joke because every time they did something, the movie would just cut away.
The old gods died.
Whereas in the Snyder Cut, the intention was clearly to build rather than destroy. For example, the movie begins with the death of Superman in BVS, which it uses as a very effective foundation to set up Steppenwolf and the mother boxes as something actually ominous. Overall, this movie feels like a consequential next step to what has come before in a way that also validates what has come before. We move closer to that grim future where Superman has been flipped. We get a full-on moment of Flash turning back time. We get a proper lead up to something darker. We even get an extensive scene in the dystopian future where we live in a society so messed up that Batman and Joker are forced to work together.
This is exactly what I've been waiting for. This is exactly what I've been waiting for.
And then on the other side, to put it harshly, Joss Whedon's style of comedy is actual poison to DC's established tone and characters. The main villain turned into a dumb goofball who has to have a witty one-liner for every single thing, regardless of whether it even makes any sense.
Primitive beings.
Oh, no.
And as to the heroes, pretty much every single one of them gets degraded just because Joss Whedon just has to recycle his super funny self-aware Marvel comedy. And actually, I don't even want to say Marvel comedy because Marvel has far exceeded Joss Whedon, just Joss Whedon comedy.
Sorry, you've never done battle. I've just pushed some people and run away.
Save one person.
And whether you love or hate Zack Snyder as a filmmaker, at least he knows how to be respectful to these characters in terms of how they in this universe have been established. Maybe Wonder Woman doesn't need to be saved by a guy who falls on her chest. Maybe she can just land on her feet. Maybe Flash doesn't need to be a useless moron who achieves nothing in the whole movie.
This is definitely East.
Maybe he can be the one who ultimately saves everyone. Maybe Cyborg can be a real person instead of a CGI shell. Maybe Aquaman can be more than just a carefree bro. Maybe Bruce Wayne doesn't need to forget that his parents and foster child are dead. Maybe Superman doesn't need to be such a colorful casual jokester that he never does anything in an actually meaningful way.
Too weak to see the truth.
Well, I believe in truth. But I'm also a big fan of justice.
For Darkseid.
Not impressed.
Where did that bring you? Back to me.
Is this guy still bothering you?
At this point, I guess I'm straying away from education and just trashing Josstice League again, but the point is that as a filmmaker you have to build upon what has come before instead of spitting in his face just because you think you have some good saliva in your mouth. If Gal Gadot tells you that this boob joke doesn't really fit Wonder Woman, then maybe just shut the f up and listen. There can be color and fun in these movies as there is here.
Everyone, this is Alfred. I work for him.
Badass, Alfred.
But you can't just come into someone else's movie and crank the saturation up to 100. You have to, for example, understand that there's a difference between socializing Bruce Wayne and on a mission Batman. A difference that Joss Whedon as a full-on Marvel director is incapable of maintaining.
Because in the MCU there are no secret identities and the characters remain mostly the same in and out of their superhero costumes.
It's nanotech. You like it?
Stop that box from destroying all life on Earth.
Well, I knew you didn't bring me back because you like me.
I don't... not...
Anyway, I'm just venting now, so there you have a few core ways the Snyder Cut improved on Josstice League, as built upon younger Filmento's videos. It's only a beginning, but hopefully so is this movie. And the only thing left to do now is finally move on from the pain of the past and set our sights forward on Josstice League Part 2.